Cosmic here, welcome to the channel, and today we're finally going to do a showcase of our full auto Narja build. And yes, this is using a all 5-star team, but as I covered in my previous video leading up to this, if you don't have Magna, you could definitely make Maribel work here. But what I would call the non-negotiables for this style of build in particular are going to be Narja and Khalipe. Narja just becomes your auto-free healer as you're going through the runs, and Khalipe is just the only character currently in the game that can do a good amount of damage, as well as providing you with some insane shield. So if you don't have Magna, I definitely would recommend giving Maribel a try. I covered that more in the previous video, but for today, I know there's been some questions about just going over the gear, so I'm going to cover a couple things really quickly before we let the full auto showcase roll out, and then you can see it play out. Now, I will be going back to this series once we actually get the final stages of the tower and see how it competes once we get that point, but unfortunately, this will likely just be the last video on Narja until Season 2, because there's not really a lot to do right now in Chaos Zero Nightmare as we're waiting for the next season. So while I'll be doing my dailies and all that stuff, I will, of course, be checking out some other games in the meantime, but I will be back in full swing with Season 2. So with that out of the way, let's dive into Narja's stats. And the last thing that I want to mention here up front is that the goal of this was ultimately to find truly a full auto build that can clear the tower, because much like Epic 7, we know that this is going to reset and have more rewards. Now, it's not going to reset every 3 weeks like the Hyper Basin, but I would expect this to reset with a similar frequency to the Zero system to get all the new rewards once again. So for me personally, and just trying to have access to a wider roster of characters, I just wanted to figure out what strategies would ultimately work to make it as full auto friendly as possible, so that you can of course mimic the build and try to get something very similar to make it a full auto experience, so you don't have to sit there and go through 30 stages every so often, because let's face it, that does take a little bit of time to get through some of those later stages, but we'll have to wait and see. So up front here, we do have our Narja, and I am going to just click through on the full stats here so you can see the full breakdown. I am going to go through the memory fragments this time. I've been getting a lot of questions for that, so we'll talk through that as well. For partners, we do have Gaia. Now, I pulled Gaia because I refuse to separate the two of them. The notable thing here for Gaia is that we are really just using this because it gives us a damage buff, which is really good. But keep in mind that if you are someone who has Alyssa, which I've talked about previously, you do get a 24% defense bonus. So this is a very, very good option because this will increase your overall healing. For cards, for the save data rather, I've covered this in the previous video, so I'm not going to talk about the individual cards here. For potentials, I do want to stress that yes, all of them are really important here, which is not the case for the other combatants. Getting her final potential is just going to be a straight damage boost. Of course, critical chance is always great for things like mealtime and dealing a little bit of extra damage. And then your defense priority is going to increase your healing, making sure you're dealing more damage. Now, for all these characters, the most important one is going to be the unique card upgrade as always. This is going to give us more damage and healing off of mealtime. And then some of these other ones where, you know, it's around the basic cards, like these two potentials in particular. For me personally, I would recommend just skipping them, save your resources, because I will never use her basics in a build personally. And then also again for the basics, I was leveling this up, I was clicking at 3 a.m. and as a mistake, so definitely don't bother with this. And there is something to be said about neutral potentials if you really want to find some neutral cards, but oftentimes the neutral cards we're going to care about for controllers are going to be either upgrade focus or just cards that say draw a card, so you don't actually get any benefit from this particular node, so do keep that in mind. Now, for memory fragments, I am just going to go one for one, and I'm not going to talk about why we're using the 222 for each one of these. I'm just going to go through all these sets just so you can see what we've got and what we didn't get. So for Narja, again, we do care about defense, crit chance, and crit damage. So again, trying to find the right pieces has been very difficult. I spent about 2 hours doing a little bit of memory fragment Tetris to get the best stats across my characters where it would matter. So unfortunately, you are going to see some really bad memory fragments for Narja and Magna. So we have a 2 substat, 1 hit. We have a 1 substat, but it did hit a triple, which was really nice for attack. For our health one, we have a single stat, 0 hits for everything else, or sorry, 1 hit, and otherwise we call a 1-hit 1, right? We do have critical chance here. We did get defense. Now, yes, on some level, a triple defense hit here is nice because, of course, that's the stat that we're trying to boost. But I really do like if you're especially not able to go for the full min-max build where you get like all the divines, all the right setup, you really do want critical chance and critical damage because most of the time you are going to be casting her shackles that deals damage. So just stacking on the crit chance and crit damage can be really important. You can see from the first view of it, our stats were a little bit lacking, but you know, for where my build is at, a defense 3 here is fine. And I'm going to get grilled for this one, but look, I literally do not have anything. I delayed uploading this video just to crystal refresh, spend my cafe stamina, spend more stamina. I could not get an instinct piece here. So unfortunately, we are using a attack piece here for this set. We did get 1 point in defense. We did get 1 point in critical chance. It is embarrassingly bad otherwise. And then for defense, we did get this one here, but not a single stat, right? Ego recovery, sure, maybe we care about, but unfortunately, this is a complete whiff of a memory fragment. We just got the right main stat, which technically is the most important part, but for Narja alone, there is a lot of upgrading that we could do here from we need to improve this long term, you know? And then just to prove it out, E0 across all of our teams for this. So I'm just going to do this all at once, right? E0. And then E0 for the Khalipe as well. So let's get into Magna. You can see that her stats are pretty terrible. And as I covered in the partnering videos, that the only thing that matters here is going to be her defense stats, since counterattacks can't crit. For her partner, we are just going to be using Radial because as a free-to-play, you know, side of this is the best option for increasing the counterattack damage. For the save data, there it is, just as reference. For her potentials, as I talked about, this is the only one that matters. You can see that I just went straight across. Nothing else matters. Now, if you want to build her to be a damage focus with the Glacial Fist card to trigger the Khalipe Vulture ejections, that's totally fine. You can do that. However, for this build and for what I have, it is not relevant, not important, because, again, we got super lucky and got this card, which was the all-around MVP and build enabler for us. Now, for memory fragments, yes, again, Agony is correct, trust me. But as we're going through this, right, we have a +1 defense. We have 1 defense. We have at least 2 correct substats, defense and crit damage. This one is at least a little bit better that we got, you know, a good mix of stats. Now, again, for Magna, the crit chance is irrelevant. We really just want to get as much defense and as much attack as possible. So, technically, this is a really good piece. Like, yeah, the rolls could have been better. You know, getting everything into flat defense would have been more ideal, but a defense percentage and attack, this is very, very good for Magna, right? The only thing that would have been better is if this would have been attack percentage. Like, that is the only thing I would, you know, change about this piece. This one, unfortunately, absolutely awful, terrible piece. It's a main stat, which is really nice, but no correct substats on this, even though, again, this is why you can't always trust what the game tells you is a preferred piece, because crit chance, crit damage has 0 value on Magna for this build. Then for the Chalice here, we did get justice damage, which is really important. Very thankful for that. We did at least roll defense, but again, the 3 missed rolls here, not really a good piece. It looks good on paper, but unfortunately for this build, it's pretty terrible. Now, as a separate justice focus damage dealing piece, it's great, right? Totally. But unfortunately does fall a little flat here. And then for defense, again, this is another one that, sure, you can make some argument for health. We really don't need health for this build. So this is another example of just a straight 0 hit, very bad memory fragment set for Magna, and then again, E0. So again, Magna and Narja alone have a lot of improvements that they could have here. I can't stress that enough, but where I decided to put all of my efforts and try to min-max as much as possible is going to be Khalipe, because not only is she the damage dealer for this team, she also is going to be the shielder, so she is the #1 priority stat-wise as we're trying to put this together. So really quickly, here's all these stats themselves, and you can see that there is, unfortunately, some wasted stats here. For partners, we are going to be using Will, just because it does give us the extra defense increase. And if I had the Magna build completely focused, right, getting the additional damage from Vulnerable would be really nice. From our save data, again, MVP, thank goodness we got Confiscation. Potentials, yes, technically I am missing the crit chance here because I just don't have any more of the resources, because I always save these for whatever the next character is. Definitely need more ways to get undetermined ego crystals. But for Khalipe, I will stress that her final note is a little bit of bait here. To get 700 attack, they want you to use the attack piece instead of crit chance, which is just 100% wrong for the value that you're getting out of it. Now, that said, you are going to get a plus 20 shield here because 300 defense is super easy to get. Same thing again, her unique card is going to be really important for making sure you get the most out of Vulture Ejection, and otherwise I skipped out on, this last node. That doesn't really help because we're not going to be using her basics, because otherwise they are pretty worthless. Now, this is where I stripped all my characters from their memory fragments, and I just said, okay, what is the best Khalipe that we can put together based on the memory fragments that we have? So, obviously, this attack piece is absolutely insane. 3 rolls in a crit chance, 1 in a crit damage. Sure, the other 2 stats could be better. For our other one, we have crit chance, crit damage. And again, this is the extra damage over time playing a role against us. But again, getting some good rolls into those pieces. This one was absolutely beautiful to hit, with the defense having 2 rolls in a crit chance, 2 rolls in a crit damage. And this is another one of those times where, yes, flat defense helps. And I do not mind health here being the last one. For our crit chance, once again, getting pretty lucky here with having at least double defense and going all 3 rolls otherwise into critical damage just to really help out her stats. Instinct damage here was nice. Now, unfortunately, yes, we got defense substats, and, even the health is pretty good here, but our rolls were kind of flat across the board. That's fine. Would have liked a lot more crit damage. And then for our last piece, for defense, we did get 2 points into critical damage. However, not having a crit piece here to go with it, or a crit substat, does leave a little bit ultimately to be desired. But otherwise, clearly, I put all of my efforts, all of my value into Khalipe to really just be the highest value. And again, E0 for this team. So this run is going to be just completely full auto. I will add a quick disclaimer here that there is exactly 1 card that I play manually, because no matter how many times I've tested this build and tried different, get retained, get different cost of cards, no matter what, the auto battler will not cast Glacial Fist. I cannot figure out the priority sequencing that makes sense on it. It will even cast Mealtime before it casts Glacial Fist, which, even if there's the same cost, which I kind of get, because you get the healing, you get damage, you get buffs, sure, but Glacial Fist is, we pick the Epiphany to remove it from the deck, so I do want to let it play out. So I'll add a note as when I go to that turn in the run itself of, here's why I'm stopping the play and otherwise letting it go out. But again, we will just kind of re-showcase this once we get the later tower stages, but I'm just going to let the video itself, or the showcase, play out manually, add a couple notes as it's going on. And then if you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, whatever, let me know in the comments below. But thank you all for, supporting this fun, what started as a meme build, honestly, and then turned out to be way better than I expected, because I really just wanted a build that could clear the tower, and turned out to be actually a super sick sustained build. So if you want to see more videos like this, of course, don't forget to like and subscribe, support the channel for future Chaos Zero Nightmare videos. But with that out of the way, enjoy the showcase, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
始末してやろう。
艦長、さすがです。どーんと任せて。何でも言ってくれよな。凍りつけ。
耐えられるかな。さあ君たちに勝利を授けよう。始末してやろう。始末してやろう。
恐竜剥がれた。まだ足りない。何すればさせないようだ。
さて耐えられるかな。さあ君たちに勝利を授けよう。始末してやろう。
私に任せて。
私の出番。我々は勝利する。戦うじまだ。
何をすればせい。
戦いいよ。
全部の何すればさせないようだ。私に任せて。
さて耐えられるかな。始末してやろう。さあ君たちに勝利を授けよう。始末してやろう。始末してやろう。
意志が沈潜するとき、絶望は口を開ける。
私の出耐えられるかな。さあ君たちに勝利を授けよう。始末してやろう。さて皆胸を張れ。
何をすれば足りない。何すればさせないようだ。私に任せて。
戦う順。
何をいいよ。全部飲み何すればさせないようだ。
私の出番。我々は勝利する。
私に任せて。
戦う順。さて耐えられるかな。始末してやろう。さあ君たちに勝利を授けよう。始末してやろう。始末してやろう。私の出番。切ってやろう。
何すればさせないようだ。私に任せて。
さて切ってやろう。始末してやろう。
まだ足りない。
私の出番。皆胸を張れ。さて耐えられるかな。さあ君たちに勝利を授けよう。始末してやろう。始末してやろう。始末してやろう。さあ君たちに勝利を授けよう。
何すればさせないようだ。私に任せて。何をいいよ。全部飲み込む。
私の出番。耐えられるかな。始末してやろう。始末してやろう。さあ君たちに勝利を授けよう。戦う順。まだ足りない。まだ足りない。作戦指揮を開始いたします。 さて我々は勝利する。
何すればさせないようだ。うんうん、私に任せて。何をすれば戦う順まだ足りない。
私の出番だ。耐えられるかな。始末してやろう。始末してやろう。さあ君たちに勝利を授けよう。始末してやろう。
何をいいよ、全部飲み込む。まだ足りない。何すればさせないようだ。
さて耐えられるかな。始末してやろう。さあ君たちに勝利を授けよう。
戦う順や。うんうん、私に任せて。
私の出番。みんな胸を張れ。
何をすればまだ足りない。タッチタッチ
見せてやろう。我々ホワイトアルカイブの真の力を。
戦ういいよ、全部飲み込む。
耐えられるかな。始末してやろう。